Are entrepreneurs in Canada less motivated than their US counterparts? Last week, Matt Reesor gave us his take and identified how Canadian firms need to compete. Today, Chris and I dig deeper into the complexities of the Canada versus US competitive landscape. Welcome to Startup Different. This is the Startup Different podcast, hosted by successful entrepreneurs and brothers Dave and Chris Sinkinson. We're here to bust startup myths and give you the insights you need to help you reach your startup dreams. Hello, folks, and welcome to Startup Different. It is I, David, and it is he, Christopher.
Hello.
Hey, look at us.
I know.
It's flannel day here on Startup Different.
Right on.
So I'm allowed to do this because I'm a dad. Straight up. I can wear flannel whenever I want. I have 2 kids now.
I need special permission.
Yes.
Oh,
definitely.
Okay. Did I get it?
No.
No?
You didn't ask.
Well, I better go change.
Oh, actually, you know what I just realized? We got kind of like sort of like both colors of the logo. I mean, you're like blue. I mean, the logo is really teal.
Yeah,
and I'm red, but I'm red.
But I think it's more orange, the logo.
No, it's not. Is the logo red or orange? Let us know by commenting on this video. It's definitely red though, bro. Come on.
All right, great. So we color coordinate with our logo.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Except
Okay.
not
Okay. Fine. No banter this episode. Okay. Okay. Let's. Hey, actually, this is kind of appropriate. Let's get into communication. How we communicate. So, great guy, Matt Reesor, longtime friend of the pod, and friend in life. He interviewed me for my getting into the MBA program, so that was pretty cool. Yep. Now has this business on communications and how to communicate effectively as entrepreneurs and all that kind of stuff. Really interesting guy. We had a cool discussion. If you haven't checked it out, it was the last episode. It's really cool. We talk about a couple of different things. I think there's basically 2 themes. There's one where it's entrepreneurs kind of can struggle at communicating. Okay.
I'm like the poster boy.
Yeah, he looked at you a lot during this episode. He's like, some technical founder.
Well, it's just normal, I think, for a technical founder because you're really into every line of code. You know every little feature. You know all that stuff.
Well, hang on. Like, we'll get there in a second. We'll get there in a second. Jesus.
All right.
See, you're already doing it.
Yeah, no.
And then the second big thing was entrepreneurship in Canada and how it differs from the United States and sort of the complexities here in Canada. So I want to make sure that today we spend a decent amount of time on sort of the latter half as well.
Okay.
Because I think it's important for a lot of our audience being Canadian, although we do see our American friends there too. I just want to make sure that we get to that and kind of explain some of those complexities. But yeah, let's go back to the communication piece. So he is all about clear and concise communication and how that's sort of critical for entrepreneurship in general. And I think it's kind of, there's 2 parts to this. So on the one hand is what you've already alluded to, which is the technical co-founder thing. And you are the poster child for this. Yeah. I think what it is if you have a tendency to want to explain everything from a technical perspective, then you immediately kind of fall back into that.
Right. You have a hard time sort of summarizing, seeing the 30,000-foot view of what your product or solution is going to do. Mm-hmm. Instead, you get right into the weeds of very specific features, very specific technologies you're using, things like that. And it's really, and I do this all the time. I struggle with this big time because that's what we do, right? That's what a technical co-founder is doing, is always focusing on those things. But really, it causes you to lose the message. And I think that's what Matt's what he's trying to get across to people like me is that I think he gave an example of a technical founder that he had worked with and kind of prepped and then was all ready to go.
The 4-minute pitch.
The 4-minute pitch. Yeah. And then the guy went
ended up being like a 12-minute pitch or something.
And I could see that happening to me as well. I am very aware that this is an issue. And I think this might have been why it was our business was more effective with you, because you were able to come in and be that, no, here's the message that we're bringing across. Yeah. And later on, maybe if you wanted more details, then you would bring me into the conversation to answer something specific. But I think that's why we played off each other fairly well.
I think the term I used for it was packaging. Yeah. Like being able to package the message was important. And that's, I mean, any salesperson watching today is going to be like, yeah, obviously you need to take these complex things and kind of boil it down to a sentence or two.
And every software developer watching today is like, what do you mean?
What do you mean? Yeah. But surely they'll be impressed by the technical know-how behind this. The product sells itself, you know. But I think that's really, really important. And I don't want to get caught up either in some of the, there's definitely a myth in here too around you need to have like a really effective like elevator statement. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's like if you're riding the elevator you get on an elevator and like, I don't know, Elon Musk is there, or like, I don't know, Reid Hoffman, and you're like, oh, this is my chance to get an investor or somebody really famous interested in what I'm doing. I better be able to convince them in 90 seconds or less that my business is interesting. And like, that is such a ridiculous thing. Like that's never happened to me. I mean, that would be cool, but I don't think it's that important. But I do think the spirit of it is just that you got to package your business or package what you're offering, right, and the value it drives, as opposed to the nuts and bolts of like how it's made.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But you being the sort of like carpenter of the business, right? You just want to talk about those components,
the technical aspects of it, because that's what we're into. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Matt mentioned too this dilution effect, which I thought was interesting. So that's definitely what happened to that guy. The guy who gave that, who they had a packaged 4-minute thing, and then and do you want me to qualify the dilution effect? So the dilution effect was that he introduced too many arguments,
right,
to support his point. Like there's actually a certain amount of like after, I'm just making this up, but it's probably something like this. After like 3 main bullets to support your thing, you start losing people.
You don't want to go
counterintuitively.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was pretty cool though.
Yeah,
I never really heard that. Had you heard that before?
I feel like I've heard that. I can't tell you where, but I know myself though. Like, I don't know. I do struggle with this because like, I know myself, like if I was to go out and like buy a car, okay, I want to know about every single spec on that spec sheet. I want to know about all that sort of stuff. So I think there's part of it too, is it's like your personality type. Yeah. But the personality type of the person who's like super technical is not usually the decision maker, the person in the business that's actually trying to solve a real business problem. And they're just trying to really make sure it solves that business problem. They don't really care about like exactly how it does it or all those technical aspects of it. So I do think, I don't know, I struggle with it.
I think also there is some level of, I don't know if you want to say personality necessarily, but some people, and I find this is true, particularly of those folks who are a bit more introverted, who are being sort of forced to talk, okay, that they want to fill the space.
Yeah.
They want to talk a lot. Yeah. And then any good salesperson watching right now today, I mean, I've already said this once, but they'll know that the key to winning any negotiation is to just be quiet, because the other side will tend to fill the space and start giving things away or starting giving up some of their position or whatever. Like knowing when to pause is actually a really specific ability. And I think that and I think you're a wonderful person, but I think one of the things that you lack is once you get nervous, you fill the space.
Yeah.
You just start going.
Yeah. If it's really quiet, I just start talking because I can't.
Because you don't like the nerve. Like I also think that's like a Western thing too.
Yeah.
That is a cultural norm out here. You know what I mean? Like we're not good with empty air or dead air. Yeah. Other cultures can do it, and I think they know that they can do it, and they use it against us in negotiations. So
here comes Chris.
Now, remember in the MBA program, which is appropriate with Reesor too, because he was the director at the time. But remember when we were in the MBA program, we had to do like a negotiations class, and you had to go out and negotiate, and it was there was the cultural differences made it really tough. Like I know, like I think you got taken for a ride. Didn't you?
I got cleaned out.
Yeah, you got cleaned out big time.
Yeah,
because you probably kept talking.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
I remember one of my friends, Jason Brooks, was a JD MBA. His strategy was, I'm just going to tell them what my like thing is that I need in the negotiation, and surely they'll meet me halfway and make it work. And the guy just said, okay, that's what you want? Cool. I need these like 10 other things to get that. So Jason agreed, but ended up, effectively losing the negotiation because he gave away the farm, right? So anyway.
I like Jason.
He's a great dude. Jason, you're a good man. Friend of the pod. But so I thought that was pretty interesting too. That dilution effect and those concepts and that anxiousness. Yeah. And I think one last piece here too is that it is just a fundamentally different skill set. Like and you've alluded to this, that there's the people that can kind of deliver on the business explanation and business problems. Yep. And then there's the people who are a little bit more in the business who can make the product itself. And I think those are really different people. Yep. And that's what makes some CTOs like really spectacular, I think, who can run the gamut from, and I think you could do this too for what it's worth, but could run the gamut from the sort of product issues and product development and also into the business needs. And being able to articulate that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Cool.
I also think, I just had one more thing. Internal versus external is another thing too. Like I think you were better at delivering internally. You could be very clear and concise, and you had a good vision. You could package what you wanted to do with the product.
Okay.
To our staff. Yeah, selling to our own team effectively.
Okay.
Internal sale.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But not external.
Producer Graham, mark this point because I did just compliment Chris. Just make sure we know that.
Had to happen eventually.
Yeah. Where's the gong? But hey, one thing that Chris and I have talked a lot about on this show is how easy it is for founders to build apps and automations with no-code tools. One of the most powerful tools out there is called Bubble. But even though Bubble is a no-code platform, it can get a little complicated to do things on your own. And so our sponsor today is an agency that's called Zero Code. That's ZeroQode, which is a top Bubble agency and that can help you build any web, mobile, or AI application, as well as automate your entire business using no-code and AI tools. Zero Code will help you build custom solutions, CRMs, custom dashboards, marketplaces, or internal tools to automate your business much faster and cheaper. However, if you want to try to build on Bubble yourself, Zero Code is also the biggest plugin builder for Bubble, and they have more than 700 plugins. Make sure you check them out. Discover the simplicity and power of no code and AI at zerocode.com. That's Zero Code and code with a Q. And now back to the show. But I think once you're facing an external stakeholder, when you feel like there's more or there is more at risk, that's when you're going to start getting out of your comfort zone in a bad way.
Yep. Okay.
So, a couple other things that Matt got to, and then we'll get to the Canada-US thing. So success, I think, he suggested that it requires a combination of skills, not just that technical expertise. So we kind of got to that. Yeah. But I think what I wanted to get here is that many entrepreneurs are sort of generalists. And I think we were this as well. We were good at like a bunch of different things. We still had our weaknesses and our strengths.
Yep.
But you had to kind of be able to dabble in just about everything.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that being aware of and balancing that skill set while still like leaning into where you're strong is important. And that's where your co-founder comes into the whole equation too.
And I think we did a good job of that. You know, like I tried to stay.
If you say so yourself.
You didn't write any code and I didn't do much sales marketing unless you specifically asked me to. So I think that worked out well where we were doing our downstream effort. We were focusing on the things that we were really good at. And we were letting the other guy do the stuff that he was really good at. And it happened to be very complementary.
Yeah. And so I think that's an important thing to consider too, because one of the things that I think entrepreneurs get tripped up on here is when you get to the stage where you're hiring people, you tend to think about the way you work. And we kind of screwed this a little bit up the first time where you're like, oh, I'll hire more generalists or I'll bring somebody in to do a couple of roles. And I got to say, don't do that.
Right.
What you need to do is you need to have those systems in place and have people work in specific roles in your company to deliver value. So if they were... So for the second time we hired, because we had our culture failure, which we talk about in our book, Startup Different, the Myth Busting Blueprint for Your Multi-Million-Dollar Business. That it's a bit of a mouthful, but that once you bring people in, find a part of your job that you understand really well and have somebody come in and do part of that or all of that or do that with you.
Right.
Don't have them do three different things. I hired salespeople because we understood sales. We hired coders because you understood coders.
So we talk about the Canada-US thing.
Yeah, you're dying to talk about this, eh?
Yeah.
So why do we suck, Chris? What gives? I'm sorry to all my Canadian entrepreneurship friends. We're going to be a bit crass here, but I think this is a really interesting topic of conversation. I definitely feel on the one hand like offended almost when these headlines come out. The Canadian entrepreneurs suck, or like we don't like hold on for long enough.
Like we don't suck. We don't have the same mentality, I don't think, as U.S. entrepreneurs. I don't know if it's a function of just we're nice Canadians versus people are more aggressive about their businesses, aggressive about their growth plans in the United States. I do struggle with the idea that Canada is like a good place to like incubate your idea before you go to the end of the United States. Well, I think one of the biggest things that I think helps you grow your business is your referenceable clients. Okay. And what we learned was Canadian clients weren't referenceable in the United States. They don't know, especially we were working with universities, and you can take a Canadian university, maybe down in the United States, they might have heard of University of Toronto, like maybe, but mostly because they've heard of Toronto, not necessarily that they've heard of University of Toronto.
Sure.
So I found that was one of the myths is that you can really easily take, Canadian referenceable clients and use them as you try and expand your company down to the United States. And I just don't think that works.
I hear you, and you're right in the spirit of it is difficult to reference across that border. It's strangely sticky, despite Canadians and Americans being like reasonably similar.
Yeah.
But I would say, I think, okay, we understand that 70%, 75% of startups fail. Okay.
Right.
So, and we had a couple startups fail as well too. So this hits everybody. It's cool. I'm okay with it. But the thing that makes a startup fail is either, so like, let's just move out of some of these things. So like the team just falls apart or your investors kind of suck. But there's then the big things become bad market fit or competitors.
Right.
Okay. So I kind of think that when I say, because I was the one who brought up that point, so bring it on. But when I think about the Canadian market, I think about it as a good space to incubate because there's relatively less competition.
Yeah.
We're not up against these apparently aggressive-minded American competitors because they're not going to come up here.
Right.
Because we are too small of a market for many, many businesses in the United States to care about till they're at a certain level of scale. It's pretty significant.
Right.
And it gives you kind of that ability in Canada to make those little pivots, make those little changes to listen to your market and improve and hopefully have a solid footing. So you have reliable income and hopefully profit to be able to then launch in the United States. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Now, will we be more successful launching in the United States because of that? No, maybe not. But we will have a reliable, couple million, like we were doing, I don't know, like 1 million or maybe 2 in Canada, maybe even less to be honest. But like before we went into the United States.
Right.
Right. So I guess my point is that like, yeah, you're right. But I don't know. I kind of feel like, it is kind of a solid place.
Can I put a counterpoint out there?
No.
Just
I think
because I like arguing with you. So one of the other things we talk about is Sally. You remember, same as last year.
Yeah.
Okay. And how it's really
Great
difficult.
chapter in the book.
Yeah. It's really difficult to dislodge a competitor that's already in with a client. Okay.
Okay.
So we incubated our idea up here, and we did really well in the Canadian market.
Yeah.
But it's a very small market.
Tiny.
Hard to go to the United States and use those references. But the other thing too was that we gave our competitors a bit of a chance to, get themselves as the de facto choice for a lot of those potential high value clients.
It's interesting.
So a lot of our growth, we really had to battle with competitors because it was almost always like a knockout kind of situation. Okay. Now, I do know we like it when there are competitors, and especially if you've got a better mousetrap than your competitors.
They educate the market. They show that there's money in it. There's an opportunity.
So what's better? Would you rather have competitors that are all talking about a product, or would you rather be Sally? Would you rather be in there first and be really well established?
Yeah. So going in first and blowing it is the worst case scenario. Right?
Yeah.
If you go in first and somebody shows up with a better mousetrap for less that is more functional, which I think is effectively what we did.
But it was still hard to get them out, even though we had clients.
Because it was an institutional sale. It was a long sales cycle for sure. I agree with that. I think it's a function of timing. Okay. So I think there's a right time to enter the U.S. market.
Would you say we were entering that market at the right time?
Yes. Because I think by the time we had entered the market, our product was the safety app category, which is not exactly the most lucrative category out there, but it was accepted in the market. The market was educated well enough that it was like, this is a tool that we need. Now, fortunately, the major competitors in our space, Rave actually even that ended up buying us, and another company that what I'm talking about. They were priced really high. Okay, right. So great. So the market knows this concept exists. The market knows it needs to have a budget for this sort of thing because it's going to be expensive and that it's annually recurring and all those other important things. And that they couldn't quite afford it yet, but maybe they'll get it in a couple of years. Perfect. That's exactly where we want to be. Because then we pop in, we're half the price, we do more stuff, or at least the same. That's a great opportunity. I think it's a function of timing. Like I don't think you're wrong with any of this stuff either. Did we know that we were doing it at exactly the right time? Not really. I think we were just like, man, we better get into that market.
Yeah. But let's say we were first into that market and we also had, the really good price. We had the really good product, the best mousetrap. Like that's probably the best case scenario where maybe you are having to educate your customers, but you're getting in there and you're really establishing yourself. And then you're maybe scaring off. I think this probably what we did in the Canadian market
Yeah.
was we scared off a lot of competitors up here because we were a really good product. We were at a very
We were too
reasonable
low though,
price.
pricing wise. But yeah, we did.
And I think a lot of startups probably underpriced their products
'Cause they just
at the
need
beginning
traction.
because they need traction.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, I don't know. I agree to disagree.
It's interesting. I wish we had the crystal ball, right? We could look and see like, well, what if we
What if we had done
You know,
things
because I do, and I also write about this in the book, how we lost the Brown University deal to Rave, hilariously. But I remember going in and I priced this in the stratosphere. And if we had gotten that customer, we would have had like 2 years before we got University of Florida. We would have had a marquee client in the United States. Whoa,
Yeah,
like that's
that
a
would've been
different that's a different ball game all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that's why probably one of my bigger regrets to the business.
Yeah.
You let me do it. I don't know if you let me or you're just like maybe he can get it or what. But the net result was we did not get it, and why that put us back, you know. And we didn't make that mistake twice. When we got to Florida, we gave them a heck of a deal to get them on the platform. That's interesting. But this is all like strategy based. I think really what I want to get back to though is two things on this like Americans versus Canadians thing. So everybody uses this term like aggression. Like how aggressive they are. Like, what the hell are we talking about? Are they yelling on the phone? Are they scaring us?
I think
this is crap.
what it means to me is like throwing a lot of money at it, throwing a lot of marketing effort at it.
It's not like literally being like a bear.
All of a sudden, startup is at every trade show. Obviously in our B2B kind of space, this is how they would have done it. Would be like all of a sudden they're at every trade show. They're got a big sales force. They're sponsoring everything. Like that is what I think of when we say aggression. They're not actually like
it's a function of a lot of things though. Like the market's just bigger in the United States. Like you can get traction in a single state and be making more money than if you had all of Canada. Okay, right. So yeah, then you can go and there's also a currency advantage if you were to come up to Canada as an American company. Like you're going to be able to spend a lot of dough pretty easily in a good way, in a really function. Like you could saturate the market, right? As Nathan Young would have said, you could just go at Canada, right? So there's that. There's also just that the venture capital community in the United States is more aggressive. It is more significant. It is more involved. There's more of a culture around, I think, innovation. Yeah, I think American ingenuity. I'm not a big fan of American exceptionalism, where Americans are kind of like, we're really great because we're Americans. But I think you got to hand it to them. And when it comes to innovation, like some of the most incredible stuff is coming to that country. It's hard to deny. So there is something about driving like that determination, that ambition, right. Almost like raw ambition, just like that's the aggression I think of. Yeah. But I also think that there are lots of Canadian companies that are like that. So let's go back to this for a second. So the one thing that kind of bothered me and that I really wanted to get Matt's take on was that article from the Shopify president. Can't remember his name right now, but that fellow. And he was kind of like, Canadian companies need to hold on for longer rather than selling for $40 million or whatever. Right. And I'm kind of like, screw you, man. Like, you don't know the different things that are happening to these companies that are out there. But right?
I do understand his point, though. I think we should be aspiring to more, than just our best day is that when we get acquired by our biggest U.S. competitor. Yeah. Like that's a fair point. Okay, fine. Like we, as a country of entrepreneurs, we should be aspiring to more than just.
Okay, cool. So you have a company, and I'm an American investor. You're doing $10 million a year. I'm going to offer you $100 to $120 million to buy your company. And you're not going because you're like, I love Canada. I've got to do it. Like, come on. Yeah. This is all about, there's a lot of this is about money. Okay. And right. A lot of the time too, like, guess what? You're getting bought by a strategic competitor in the United States that allows you to amplify your impact. Right. So the thing you were doing, you're now doing at a 10 times greater scale.
Yeah. And, maybe the argument is that then you are, you've got all that.
I'm so passionate here. All of a sudden,
$100 million, and you're starting your next big thing, and you're so much better off that you're going to do your next thing, and like maybe you get to that point where you're running the big company that's acquiring the strategic competitor from the U.S. and
like I do really admire Shopify. I think it's a really cool story. It's an amazing thing. It would have been cool to see the various points where they were offered probably an insane amount of money
and said no.
Yeah. That would be cool. Yeah. I would like to go deeper on that. But, probably won't be able to. But I don't know. Like, part of me just gets kind of offended when I hear that. And I'm sure there's entrepreneurs today who have really good business or Canadian businesses, and I don't think they should feel bad about taking an offer from an American competitor.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of what we're doing here is also, locking in generational wealth. Like an entrepreneur, you are gambling. You are out there, you are hoping it works out, but then all of a sudden a COVID pandemic can show up and explode your business.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually I want to kind of talk about that point because I do think I was listening to Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland.
Yeah.
I love, awesome
Is
person.
it Christina or Krista?
Christia.
Christia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Freeland. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Anyways, they were talking about the capital gains inclusion rate changes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she was saying, we're going to ask these Canadians on their best day where they've, sold an asset or sold their business or whatever to pay a little more. And, I understand where she's coming from. That comes from a good place. But what's tough is she doesn't realize the amount of risk that went into that good day. Okay?
Or doesn't adequately acknowledge
and
that.
you and I, we had 5-6 things that we tried to build that we put blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of money into that crashed and burned, and we had to walk from, and they failed. And it took us our 7th or 8th, I can't remember which one App Armor was, but 7th or 8th maybe business idea.
I'll get the book
before we finally got it. And when I think about even just running that, how many times we had those whiffio moments where
after it's over.
Yeah, exactly. Where so we are fortunate that and I totally understand this is one of those world's smallest violin moments. Okay?
Yeah.
But it is a bit frustrating to say that, look, I took all these risks, and there's probably 100 other entrepreneurs like me that never got that big moment. And then, in that big day where we finally get to sell our business, not only are we already going to give you a huge amount of tax money, that monumental amount. We should have won Taxpayer of the Year.
They don't send it. The CRA doesn't send it.
It's actually not a thing.
The Canadian IRS is called the CRA. But
And then I think the issue is that the Canadian tax system doesn't operate in a vacuum. There are other countries.
That's the. I was going to say that was going to be my point here.
Okay.
Sorry if I may. It's not on the notes. I'm just going for it. But the nuance here is that if you actually want to do this kind of effectively like a wealth tax, in this regard, it has to be something that's applied globally. Because otherwise, companies will just not incorporate here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it, and then you've lost the innovation that you're trying to create.
Yeah,
it's easy for us to look at one part of government and be like, man, they really screwed that up.
Yeah, it's tough to be a smaller market and have worse, tax policies.
This actively dissuades innovation,
right?
Unfortunately.
Right. Okay, so then there's going to be people out there saying, "Oh, you guys, you're too fortunate. You've lost touch and all that sort of stuff," and that's fair criticism. I would strongly encourage people, if you feel that way, try and start a business, and not a little solopreneur thing on the side. Okay, a side hustle thing. Try and actually start a business. Go mortgage your house. Put all your money into hiring staff or to getting a commercial place. Go out there and try and convince customers to give you money for something. It's a really tough slog, and you have no idea. And then come back and think about this thing. And keep in mind when an acquisition happens, those entrepreneurs are still handing over a huge pile of money to the government, depending on the whole situation. And it just always seems like, how often can the government go back to the tax well? Whenever you spend money, the government gets a cut. Whenever you earn money, the government gets a cut. It's really tough that okay, well, let's just go tax more is the solution to every problem.
Yeah. You'd like to see the government be more efficient, maybe focus on the things that it does better, and also not really be dissuading entrepreneurship. And by the way, it's not even just entrepreneurs; it's doctors and stuff too that also get caught up in this.
Yeah,
which is a different part. They basically operate like little businesses. So, I'm with you. It is frustrating.
Yeah,
but
and I know.
I think also at the same time, by the way, Chris and I, we want to help people. I mean, that's part of what we're doing here too. And we know that we need taxes to do some of that stuff. We pay our taxes. We win one taxpayer of the year. But I think it's important. I just don't think that. I think we really push away some of the smartest people with some of this
Or
government
the most driven people that are really trying
Yeah.
to bring innovative products and services to our market.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they just don't want to do it. It's no longer worthwhile given all the risks
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff.
100%.
Again, opening myself up to a ton of criticism here,
Yeah.
but and certainly, I respect everybody that works hard days, full. I think I did. Our dad always said I did 40 years of work in 20 years to get our business to where it was, and certainly a lot of actual hours went into it. So it wasn't lollipops and rainbows the entire way.
Yeah.
It was a lot of scary
I
stuff.
also think the one thing that's also kind of short-sighted here too is that when you, and I'm with you too on that, but I would say the one thing that's short-sighted here too is that people will be like, well, whatever, it's just these people who make a whole ton of money. Yeah, but those people who make a whole ton of money are employing a whole ton of people.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
this, we know trickle down doesn't work. I'm not talking about trickle down economics. I'm talking about literally somebody had started a business, hired 20 people. Those 20 people have jobs and careers and
Supporting their
families, moving things forward. Yeah. And if you dissuade people from getting that payday at the other end of the business, then those jobs don't exist.
Right.
So
Right.
Anyway, we're getting political here on
deep.
Startup Difference.
Yeah.
Wow, our next guest will be Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Anyway, folks,
He's not actually
coming. We're not sure if he's a friend of the pod or not. But anyway, thank you so much, folks, for joining us. That's another episode of Startup Different. We will be back next week with another interview, and we look forward to seeing you then. Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the episode. Nicely done. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so the almighty algorithm can help others find us. Want more from Startup Different? Check out our book, Startup Different, the myth-busting blueprint for your multi-million-dollar business. Follow us on social. We're big on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also check us out at startupdifferent.com. Special thanks for this episode to Graham and our friends at Toronto Podcasts. Visit them at torontopodcast.ca. See you next week.